So I just got done watching the new Luc Besson's Dracula film, and I went in expecting to be underwhelmed because there's been a lot of Dracula movies, none of them come close to the 1992 Bram Stoker's Dracula. So I went in not expecting much, and when I walked out of this one, I didn't hate it. As a matter of fact, I actually like this one more than the 2024 Nosferatu film, which surprised me. But let's just get one thing clear. This isn't a pure horror Dracula film, all right? This one leans heavy into the dark gothic romance and the tragic obsession that he has. So whether that works for you or doesn't, you'll find out here in just a second. Right off the bat, Besson, frames Dracula more of a cursed romantic guy versus a predator, which, we all know, especially like for myself, like I said a second ago, Bram Stoker's Dracula is my all-time favorite Dracula film. So everything kind of gets compared to that film and the way Gary Oldman carries Dracula. In this particular case, Caleb Landry Jones, who plays Dracula, takes a different approach to him, and it works. He's driven more by obsession, longing, and guilt. And, this just clear the air. There is horror in there, but it's secondary to the mood and the emotion. So if you go in expecting to be just scared nonstop, you're going to be underwhelmed, all right? But if you're open to a more gothic, scenic movie with some horror elements, then this one's you'll be fine with this one. The main character in this one, Dracula, is played by Caleb Landry Jones. I don't really know who he is. He didn't do too bad. He carried Dracula his own way. The way Caleb does his version, he does pretty good with it. He takes more of more theatrical, haunted, just emotionally just distraught guy, where he shows a little bit more of the vulnerability in it. Where this movie really, really shines and is just awesome is just the look of the film, okay? The cinematography is awesome. It gave a very gothic look to it. What the way he used his shadows and everything, it really felt like you were in this trance-like state the whole time. I guess that's what it would feel like if you were a vampire, maybe. I don't know. But the way he pulled it off was really good. The lighting, the set design, everything was top notch. It was beautiful to look at. The costumes, especially in that time era, the costumes are always beautiful, to just look at, and they nailed it perfectly. Whereas compared to Nosferatu that came out, in 2024, Nosferatu went for more of a colder, oppressive tone. This version of Dracula feels more, let's be real, emotional and more romantic, which was, that was the road he was going for. But with all the good, yeah, there is some bad. And if you've heard anything about this one, I think the biggest thing that this thing struggled with was the pacing, because sometimes it just felt a little too long in some areas where they could have done a little bit better editing on that part. Oh, and in some areas, it didn't like really, bring out the characters a little bit more. So it was this balance that he kind of struggled with, and you can kind of sense it because you're kind of expecting a little bit more in certain scenes, and other scenes you're like, okay, we get it. Let's move on. And the other only two things that really just bothered me, it didn't really kill the whole movie, okay? And this is a small spoiler, so if you haven't seen it, you might not want to hear this one. But his friends, Dracula's friends in the castle, the gargoyles. I'm sorry. I just kept thinking of the Hunchback of Notre Dame Disney version gargoyles when these things started moving around, and I just couldn't get into that part, even though they didn't have a big thing in the movie. Just the fact that these guys were moving around and stuff was just a little too much for me, and I wish they had just done something different. Whether he just had servants all throughout the castle, it would have been a lot better than the gargoyles everywhere. And the other thing was just the perfume, him explaining the perfume and this aphrodisiac that the women were drawn to him. But it was the dance sequences that kind of were like, we don't need to do this part to get this whole point across about what this perfume was supposed to do to people. You could have edited that part out and it would have been fine. It looked cool. I mean, the costumes, the set, and everything was beautiful to look at. But that sequence in general was kind of like, we didn't really need this, did we? This isn't a scare heavy Dracula, okay? There are some sequences where it can be pretty intense and they work. One of my favorite scenes was the opening battle scene, because who doesn't like an opening fight scene? But the snow fight sequence when the bad guys are chasing the princess, snowy field, and the horse and everything like that. I won't spoil that scene because it's pretty intense. That was the one scene that I was kind of like, just like, oh, holding on, hoping nothing happened to the horses. So it worked for that. The tension was there, and overall the mood of the horror, of it being like overly scary, it never delivers that, and it's not supposed to, because again, his vision for this one was not going to be the jump scares and nonstop monster vampire that we're used to. So, anytime a new Dracula movie comes out, for people like me, the Gen Xers, we always flash back to Bram Stoker's Dracula, because that's just, again, that's the all-time favorite Dracula for me, at least. And Gary Oldman's portrayal of him was just, it's phenomenal. I mean, but we're talking about Gary Oldman. So anytime a new vampire movie comes out, and it's gonna be based around this same story, you can't help but flash back to that one. And for movies like this one, it's hard to get from underneath that shadow. Shadow. See what I did there? Just whatever. Yeah, like Nosferatu, the 2024, that one leaned heavy into the bleak, cold, dark atmosphere, which I didn't really care for. I think it was just a little too dark, so you couldn't get into it. And then you top it all off with you couldn't even see him until like the very end of the film. You get to finally see what he looks like, which is different because in this one you get to see what he looks like, pretty early on, which was cool. I liked it because I can okay, this is who Dracula is. So should you go see this one? Yeah, go check this one out. I think if you can go in there remembering that this isn't going to be the horror Bram Stoker's 92 Dracula, and this is going to be more on the romance, tragic loss side of things, you'll enjoy it because the story is very simple, kind of drags out a little bit, but it's visually stunning. You're going to have a really good time with it. If you like horror movie reviews and recommendations and you like what I gave to you here, consider hit that subscribe button. It always helps me out. So until next time, go check out my other videos. But more importantly, if you meet a dark, tall stranger dude out in an alley somewhere and he gets really close to you, you might want to turn and run the other way before he tries to bite you. Take care, guys.